18 years. I'd like all of you in this room today to close your eyes for 2 minutes and just imagine how long 18 years really is. 18 years is a long time in prison if you're guilty. If you're innocent, like Eddie, 18 years is an eternity. The damage that has been done to Eddie and to my family is irreparable. On Thursday the 4th of June 1992, Paula Gilfoyle, Eddie's wife, was found hanged in the garage of their home 2 weeks before her first baby was due to be born. Our nightmare began then. Eddie is from a law-abiding family. He has never been in trouble with the police. He was arrested 3 times, accused of murdering his wife. No account was made of the fact that this man was in a state of shock and grief. No respect was afforded him. He was interviewed for hours on end. He was shouted at, bullied and screamed at, and the police pulled all sorts of dirty tricks. 84 times they called Eddie a liar and a fantasist. Eddie didn't tell lies. Eddie told the truth. The police weren't interested. They were on a mission to get a conviction. They did not investigate one thing that Eddie told them about. Over the past 20 years, we have fought so hard I can't tell you, and dragged the truth into the light. And it is very clear, it wasn't Eddie Gilfoyle who's told lies in this case. The facts show that this was a tragic suicide. There was no crime committed, which means that the police had to invent a case and spin a fantasy together, which they then put to a jury. So who really is the fantasist? Who is the Walter Mitty in this case? Who really is the liar? Eddie served in the British Army. He served in Germany and saw active service in Ireland and in the Falklands War. The police ridiculed his army service, both in public, in private, in court, and in the media. I am deeply ashamed at how my country has treated this man, a war veteran for God's sake, and so should you be. Because this was done for you, this was done in your name. We allowed this to happen. And it's high time that we, collectively, force the authorities to right the wrong they have done to Eddie. Because of what's happened to Eddie, I have been asked to come here today and speak to you about our experience of the criminal justice system over that 20 years. I can tell you, at every stage, at every level, every safeguard has failed Eddie Gilfoyle. But a miscarriage of justice doesn't just happen on its own. In Eddie's case, as in many others, it started with the police. Errors that were made by the police on the night that Paula died led to crucial evidence being destroyed or being thrown away by the police and that led to Eddie having an unfair trial. So catastrophic were the mistakes that the police made at the scene that the police themselves ordered a secret investigation, which they then kept hidden from Eddie and his trial. By taking Eddie to trial and accusing him of such a horrible crime, all eyes, all attention was focused on what they'd accused Eddie of doing, instead of on what the police had done wrong. No one was interested in what mistakes the police had made, nor were they interested in the incompetence of the police force. No one questioned how on earth Eddie Gilfoyle could possibly get a fair trial when the police had completely destroyed all the evidence. None of this mattered. All the focus was switched onto Eddie. Eddie's trial was a sham. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. There was a complete failure to disclose evidence by the police that could have helped Eddie. A defence team that I think completely failed him. And a jury that were deceived. They were told a completely dishonest version of what had happened. It is this dishonesty, serious non-disclosure, and covering up from the top to the bottom of our justice system that prevents Eddie today from getting justice. After the trial, my family made over 100 complaints against Merseyside Police Force. Lancashire Police reinvestigated the case. They uncovered a whole load of dishonesty and corruption. Lancashire said that there was no evidence of a crime having been committed, and that Paula Gilfoyle committed suicide. A year after Lancashire concluded their investigation, Eddie went to the Court of Appeal with all this new evidence that Lancashire had uncovered. How naive we were back in 1995. We honestly thought and believed, because that's how we'd been brought up, that the Court of Appeal would see the mistake that they'd made and they'd put it all right. After all, don't forget, we had an independent police investigation saying there's no evidence of a crime. What else can you possibly need to go down to the Court of Appeal? Did the appeal court listen to any of that evidence from the Lancashire inquiry? Did they? The appeal court judge said that because the Chief Constable of Merseyside had not yet agreed to the disciplinary charges recommended against his officers, that the Lancashire inquiry was not yet concluded. So the appeal court said they couldn't hear any of the Lancashire Police investigation inquiry because it was considered to be an ongoing inquiry, even though Lancashire had actually concluded their investigation the year before. The Chief Constable stopped Eddie using that material at Eddie's first appeal. He did eventually agree the charges. He agreed them the very next day after the appeal court threw Eddie's appeal out. And then he found all his officers not guilty of anything. They all done a marvellous job. Professional. But it's worse than that. It was the newly formed CCRC that sent Eddie's case back for a second appeal in 2000. And the CCRC, quite rightly, concluded that all of the new evidence which had been uncovered by the Lancashire force had never been heard. And what makes me really angry is what the appeal court done at Eddie's second appeal. This time they said, we can't hear it. You should have used it at your first appeal. It was available then. So it's not new evidence now. We can't hear it. How disgraceful is that? How, tell me, can that be justice? How can that be right? Not only did the appeal court refuse to hear that new evidence, the appeal court didn't even care about all the other evidence presented to them by the newly formed CCRC, and they threw most of that out as well. So what is the point? How strong does your appeal have to be before they will consider it? What is going wrong between the CCRC and the Court of Appeal? Because I get the feeling that the Court of Appeal absolutely hate being told by the CCRC that there's been a miscarriage of justice. I think they hate being told that the jury have got it wrong. I think they'd rather stick pins in their eyes than admit that the jury have got it wrong. And yes, all of us here, we're all so trusting of this system. We all honestly think that if we can present all our evidence, that the Court of Appeal will overturn our cases, that they'll understand, that they'll look at it. Well, I'm telling you they won't. I'm telling you they don't. Police dishonesty and corruption. The CPS are at fault. Your defence were absolutely rubbish. They won't listen to any of that. How do I know? Because we've been there twice and done it. They won't listen. The Court of Appeal will only listen to evidence that is new, which everybody's told you and gone over and over today. New evidence this, new evidence that. But even if you get new evidence, Eddie had a whole investigation of an independent police force that had got new evidence. They don't want to know. They wouldn't let us hear it. Eddie has got a whole investigation of evidence, never been heard in a court, any court. And we can't use it anymore because now it's still classed as not new evidence. The Court of Appeal have set this bar so impossibly high that it's impossible to overturn a conviction brought in by a jury. And of course the CCRC know this, and that's their problem. Because when it was first set up, it went from a body that was set up to try and right a miscarriage of justice to a body that tries to get a case that will win back at the Court of Appeal. And the two things are different. And if the CCRC tried to get the case back without that new evidence, they're on a hiding to nothing. And they know it. So now they don't even try. Because no matter how much they believe you're innocent, without that new evidence, it counts for nothing. And let's be really honest here. It's all very well listening to all these academic people and lawyers and legal minds. But how the hell is somebody sitting in prison supposed to find new evidence? Not everybody, like Eddie, who's fortunate that he's got a family, not everybody's got that option. How do they expect these people to find new evidence? You can't just write and say, oh, by the way, I'm innocent. You have got to first of all find a solicitor. You've got to find a solicitor who will put the hours in, who will look through boxes and boxes of paperwork and find that crucial little speck of new evidence that somebody else has missed. And the CCRC dupe the public. And I say that because they say, we're an independent organisation that was set up and we investigate miscarriages of justice. Well, they don't investigate. They do not. They review. You get your solicitor to work for nothing and do hours and hours and hours of this work, and then your solicitor puts your case in front of the CCRC. And when he's done that, they review it. It's all done for them. They review it. And they need to ask the question, is it more important that we review whether a dog's muzzled, or whether we look at cases where there's real people suffering in our prison? Where is the priority? And since it's become established, this CCRC, it's become a convenient excuse for government ministers not to help you. Because now they say, oh, can't help you, sorry about that, the CCRC are looking at your case, I can't get involved, so they back off, they won't touch you, they won't help you. What a brilliant cop-out. Are the CCRC under-resourced? Yes, they are. Are they understaffed? No doubt they are. But it's not just that they're under-resourced, or the high bar that the Court of Appeal have set and make them jump. That's the problem. Another major problem is when the police decide to hide evidence. Well, actually, they don't call it hiding evidence, they call it non-disclosure. It's hiding evidence. If the police want to hide evidence from the CCRC, they will. They will. In Eddie's case, the Merseyside police hid a box of crucial evidence which contained diaries that Paula records an earlier suicide attempt in. They kept that hidden. But it wasn't the CCRC who discovered that box of evidence. It was Eddie's solicitor. And even then, it was more of a fluke that the police revealed it than an attack of honesty by the police force. And it's a serious problem that the CCRC need to sort out and address, because until they do that, the justice system will remain rotten from the top to the bottom. And it's families like mine who fight and fight and fight for people who are wrongly convicted. Not the CCRC, it's families. Families know that justice becomes a game somewhere where people win and people lose, and the truth and justice get lost in the mix. The burden to get justice should not be placed on the shoulders of families like mine, or on the shoulders of dedicated, unpaid solicitors. That burden should fall on the CCRC. But I'm afraid that the CCRC, in our experience in our case, is paralysed and ineffectual. It's paralysed because of the Court of Appeal, it's paralysed because they can't make the prosecution disclose evidence, and it's paralysed because it's under-resourced. There's nothing left of Eddie's case that was put to the jury. Every other agency that's looked at it, apart from Merseyside Police, say this case is unsafe and unsatisfactory. Eddie's case is now back before the CCRC for the third time. I want them to refer it back. I want them to overturn this conviction. I want them to take this weight off Eddie's shoulders, and I want them to give him his life back. I want justice for Eddie Gilfoyle. But if we ever do get the conviction overturned, it won't be because of anything that the CCRC have done. It will be because of others. It will be because of Eddie's family, Eddie's solicitor, and others who have helped to campaign on Eddie's behalf. And that is really sad. I sometimes wonder whether any of you people actually truly grasp the enormity of what we have done to these people, to Sue, to Eddie, to Paddy Joe, I wonder how much damage we have really done, and whether any of you people really, truly comprehend it. How shameful is it that after everything that they, Sue and Eddie and Paddy, have been forced to go through, people who are severely traumatised, mentally broken, have to travel the length and breadth of this country telling anyone who'll listen what's happened to them, doing television interviews, radio interviews, newspaper interviews, venues like this, in their desperation to get justice, to clear their names, to make sense of the indefensible. Have we not damaged them enough? Have we not put them through enough? Can any of you truly comprehend what courage it takes for these people to stand here in front of people like you, or go on the TV and say, they put me away, but I'm innocent, and I want you to know I didn't do it? How much courage that takes when you've been wrongly convicted. I feel absolutely ashamed that I've got to stand here today next to Eddie, next to Sue, next to Paddy Joe, and so should you be. You should be ashamed too, because we have failed them. We have. And after everything they've suffered, and after everything they've been through and endured, the CCRC sit up the road, neither use nor ornament to either Eddie or Sue or any of the other brave, courageous miscarriage of justice victims. And I hope by explaining Eddie's case to you today, cleverer people than me can find the answers and make the CCRC a credible organisation, a force to be reckoned with, that fights, properly fights, for innocent people like Eddie. Because the CCRC should be a national treasure. It should be something we're proud of. But as you can see, it hasn't managed to obtain justice for Eddie when he's so clearly innocent, nor for many others like him. And people like Eddie, and people like my family, are desperate for the CCRC to work as it claims. Because until it does, people like Eddie, people like Sue, families like mine, are lost. We're helpless. And that can't be right. That can't be right when an organisation like the CCRC exists. And yet my family are still fighting the might of the state alone. And that's not justice.
Okay, thank you.